Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Voice of Adoptees, which brings together diverse and unique voices from around the world to share their stories. If you liked today's episode, remember to give us a like, subscribe, and leave a review. Here's your host, David Shunk.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Voice of Adoptees. Today, I am joined by Luda, who is a Russian adoptee from Crimea. Out of all places, this should be a very interesting discussion and interview today. So a bit about Luda is she was adopted at 14. Well, she lived the first 14 years of her life over there, and we'll go more in depth and we'll hear it from her. So Luda, добро пожаловать, welcome. Очень приятно, nice to meet you. Welcome to the show. Go ahead and tell us about yourself. Introduce yourself to the audience.
All right. Thank you very much, David. All right, everybody who is listening. My name is Ludmila. I'm an adoptee. In 2002, I was adopted at the age of 14 from an orphanage in Crimea by an American family who brought me here to America to start my new life.
Wow. So let's talk about first memories. I mean, you were there long enough in Crimea to have these memories that, you know, a lot of adoptees who are, you know, adopted at younger ages, they don't have memories, but you do. What were some of your memories like over there?
Oh, well, you know, it was a very challenging time to say the least. I grew up very poor, and so I had to endure and survive a lot before I came to America. And, you know, I don't want to spill too much. I have written a memoir, so I don't want to spill too much about it. But ultimately, I was led into an orphanage at the age of 10. And so I was in an orphanage for a year and a half before I kind of went to another orphanage and spent about a year and a half in that one before my adoption at 14. So when it came to living on the streets, I lived on the streets for about 10 years of my life. And so a lot of the book is sort of about that, you know, growing up and enduring and surviving, you know, poverty and sorts of stuff.
Wow. So for 10 years, you were really on your own in Crimea, just by yourself. And that must have been extremely difficult. I mean, being that young. And did you try to find relatives or anyone that you knew there? Or
sorry, yes, let me clarify a little bit. I apologize. So what was happening is that, well, I never met my biological father. So he was out of the picture pretty much since I was born. My mom hand was there by my side at least till the age of 10 before she committed suicide. But prior to that, you know, she was around. But again, she went through so much trauma in her own life. You know, it was just like surviving, doing the best she could. And so I can't really blame her, you know, for not being able to nurture and take care of me. And eventually a baby sister as well that I had to take care of and raise because, you know, my mom could barely hang on ultimately until she couldn't. So ultimately, you know, I wasn't parent, you know, I had a parent, but, you know, which is better than nothing, considering a lot of other kids, you know, who grew up on the streets and have literally nobody. So could be worse, I suppose.
What was your experience like in the orphanages?
Oh, boy. I think the most challenging thing for me was giving up my freedom, right? Like I used to be able to kind of have a free schedule. I could roam around, you know, I could self-express myself. You know, I was more alive, so to speak, until I went into the orphanage. You know, they really break you down over there. Excuse me. Not in a worse way, but in a way where you gotta, you know, know orders, know how to follow them, understand the routine, understand how it is, you know, dealing with other kids, what to do and not to do, you know, how to behave, how not to behave. But ultimately, if I had to compare like an orphanage life, right, to the streets, of course, orphanage is definitely much better. Was it awesome? Of course not. I don't think it was awesome, you know, but it was definitely better than the streets.
Wow. Yeah. I can't even imagine. And the fact that you had to move to another orphanage was Was one better than the other in terms of the conditions, or talk about the other one a little bit?
So the first one I went into is more of like a temporary orphanage. So because I showed up, they didn't really have any proof of my existence, basically. So they kind of had to go and hunt down perhaps my father or other relatives, like my aunt, who I eventually got in touch with to ask for that information. So it was like for a whole year, they kind of did a lot of that. However, while I was there, it was awesome. It was a small orphanage, not many kids. We had sponsors, which was really awesome, for like Christmas time. You just got more attention. It was so similar, and the kids were like way younger too. And then, of course, after a year went by, they're like, okay, like we need to put you into a more like permanent or so to speak. So they put me into one where I requested. And there's also a reason as to why I requested that. And that's sort of in the book a little bit. And then, of course, this one was much bigger, way, way more kids, much older kids. Food not great. I went hungry many times. I was like, I can't eat this. So food was a huge, huge difference. From the first one, it was always a delicious meal. Second one, not so much.
When you were in Russia, before you were adopted over here, to the U.S., did you ever feel angry at your birth family for the situation that you were in?
Oh, yeah. I mean, trust me, I can talk about it now. I've done a lot of healing since then. But yes, I grew up like thinking that, my like biological father didn't show up because it was my fault somehow, right? So, of course, I was like, oh, maybe it's me. Maybe he doesn't love me. So I grew up like very early on with that thought in mind. And then as time went on, you kind of go through different layers of yourself as you kind of like expand and grow up a little bit stages.
Right.
So it kind of grew worse, or more deeper. And I was, so I was definitely angry at my father for a long time, especially I think more so after adoption, because before you get adopted, they hunt your parents down or whomever's left. And they like ask them, are you willing to give up your parental rights? It was like, yeah, I want nothing to do with her. And it was like I found out that after all these years, so it really hit me. So yeah, I definitely spent plenty of years being angry at that situation. And honestly, at my mom too, eventually definitely led me there where I was like, what the? Very angry.
Yeah. Well, that seems like an appropriate response.
Yeah, honestly,
I mean,
it's just so much piled onto that, as you guys know too. Like it's a lot piled onto that.
Right. Yeah, no, absolutely. So let's talk about when you were adopted and kind of the transition over to the U.S. And, from my understanding and your background, you came over, you didn't speak English. It was probably very hard. Let's talk about that transition for you.
And okay, so if I wish there was like an amazing term to describe this experience.
Yeah.
It was like Hunger Games, like honestly, that's the only way to put it.
Wow. Yeah.
Like not a word of English. And the worst thing is that I came here at 14. So I was like, a lot has already kind of been planted in my own kind of like naive, functional mind, I kind of like came in with this attitude of like, yes, this is dream come true, which in many ways it was. But at the same time, I kind of put a lot of like dreamy, heavenly thoughts about it. It's like, oh, everything's going to be great. I'm going to have food to eat, I'm going to have a family, a house, like all those kind of basic necessities. So that was like heavenly. I was in cloud nine, I'm like, great, I'm never going to have to start again. At the same time, maybe comfort, laugh, all of those things. But I did not foresee any of the challenges at all, right? Like, oh my God, I don't speak any English. Like, how is that going to work? Oh my God, like this is not just going and visiting a place. This is like an alien planet, like completely no resonance at all. But anything. And on top of that, you don't speak any English. So it's just like, It was just the most insane time. It was difficult. So I started from scratch. Yeah.
When it came to learning English, was the school responsible for teaching you, or were there other outside resources that you had to use to learn English, or was it your parents' responsibility? So,
Oh, gosh, that question right there, let me tell you. I have big dreams about this whole topic here. So basically, no. I know I'm not the only one in saying this, that there's absolutely no system that is like good enough for us to transition. Like, it's nothing. Like, no one was hired to be like, okay, teach her English. No one was hired to be like, okay, let's try to like make her understand like school and what that's going to mean for her or what a normal life is. There's just so much we're coming into, right, that we have no clue of whatsoever. And to be after that plopped in, right, like into a normal routine as if you're a normal American person, that's a lot. And so, I went to school and, there was nothing. And I was just like, what is going on? Like, no one even knew what was going on. So I was just like a stranger wandering around. I was like, what's going on?
Yeah.
Off their school. But as time progressed, the school, bless their hearts, like hired the necessary help. Like little by little, they were like covering along with me, right? So they're like, okay, let's start you with a little translation device. So at least there was now like this quick little thing. Because, carrying around a translating like a dictionary, right? And like try to connect with somebody is going to take me all day to make a sentence. So this was a big blessing. So it's like boom, done. As time went on, they hired somebody else who was Russian. So she was helping me with some assignments at school. And eventually my third pillar, very fundamental, incredible person, was a teacher who taught me who taught me English and how to read. So I had like this amazing, and then eventually also a friend who kind of feel like I, was getting around like what was normal, have a friend, like being a teenager, what is that like, stuff like that. So I definitely eventually got the right help and support, thank God, because I know that a lot of people don't, they just don't.
Yeah. It's important to have a structure and to have the necessary resources, especially like you said, when there's not a really good answer for any resources when someone's adopted to come over. And, what if they speak another language? What if they can't read? What if they, these are all new situations where, if the country is going to be involved with international adoptions, they should, they should know what they're getting into, you would think.
100%. Yeah. And the worst for me is that I was adopted at 14, but I was like in a grade level education at the orphanage. So I just literally, before my adoption, learned how to write cursive in my own language. So like, okay, now come here, and it's like I'm 14, praying to God, literally, I'm not going to get put into second grade, right? So I ended up being at least put into sixth grade, which, was much better. Oh my God.
So talk to us about your family life in the United States. Did you have a good adopted family or a good experience? And, talk to us about that a little bit.
Sure. I would love to. Okay. So my adoptive parents were not the best fit, I suppose I would say, to kind of say kindly. And ultimately, I can talk about it now because, again, like I said, I've done a lot of healing, reconciling, accepting year after year. So I finally, for my own self, like mentally and spiritually, have gotten to this place where I've forgiven them, I guess, in terms of understanding that it wasn't their fault. But ultimately what happened was my mother's very I think they say it's a narcissistic personality thing, borderline Munchausen's, I don't know, but she was a complicated trauma, went through a lot of trauma herself. And so unfortunately that did not mix well with my trauma and coming here, right? So ultimately it was just it did not help me. I didn't feel like I was really uplifted or even interested in, so to speak, in a weird way.
Yeah.
And there were reasons for that too. So no, I'm not in any contact with my adoptive parents. I haven't been since, let's say 2013. So it's been over 10 years. However, funny enough, I do have an adoptive sister. She was also adopted at the same time that I was in 2002, but from a different orphanage. She was 8 years old. And
Oh, okay.
yeah. And so the reason I mentioned her is that she's still in contact, right? She's still like able to somehow play their game and like, be in their lives, which is totally fine with me. But
Yeah.
I see her like 3 weeks ago, my adoptive mother, and it was so great. I was myself. I wasn't afraid of her. Like it was just such a good closure piece for me to be like standing next to her and being like, yeah, you don't scare me anymore. Like it's whatever. Like no problem.
Wow. Yeah.
It's very unfortunate because it is in many ways will always be a huge loss.
Yeah. I mean, the fact that you can come to terms with it, though, that speaks volume, definitely. So it's, you're on the right path to kind of reconciling with all the emotion and all that.
Oh,
so
thank you so much.
That's a positive. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, of course. So talk about like Russian culture. Do you stay up to date with anything? Do you listen to the music? Do you cook Russian food? Or, did you try to, when you came to the US and you were adopted here, did you try to blend in, or did you not really care? Kind of tell us like, who are you?
Of course, absolutely. I would love to share that. It's interesting that you ask it in the way that you asked it, because when I first came, I wanted nothing to do with my culture. I wanted literally like nothing to do with it. I was like, I don't care. I need to be American. I need to be Americanized, and that's all there is to it, right? Like I wanted nothing to do with that. It was so funny because part of it is because I was also running away at the time, but also I was 14. I wasn't young and just learning about my culture. I was kind of lived it already. So I was like, off with your head. I just want to know all about it. And then like years went by, and of course the older, like probably in my early mid-20s, I was like, okay, I'm starting to crave like a little bit of my culture. And so I started making some foods like kotlety. I don't know if you know that one. Kotlety is like a Russian patty.
Yep.
Beef is made with beef, like ground beef, and there's anyways, it's delicious. One of my faves. Borscht, of course, the most famous borscht.
Yep.
Very proud because it takes too long with the meat. And there's couple stores too. There's like couple stores. One is about almost an hour. One is about 45 minutes. But I can no doubt go over there and come out with like a whole bunch of goodies. Like Russian sausage, like this dried sausage meats and some pastries. And so, yeah, I definitely keep that alive, especially on Christmas and holidays.
Yeah. All right. Have you ever wanted to travel back?
Absolutely. Oh man, I didn't for a long time. I honestly felt like terrified to go back. I didn't feel that way, but I was like, oh my God. I'm like, I just didn't feel comfortable going for many, many years. And then just as I wanted to go back, it was like, bam, kids, and all this stuff happened. Crimea, because Crimea used to be Ukraine, is now Russia. And so, I still can't go back. And it's been like 5-6 years now since I like wanted to go back. And so just patiently like waiting like big to go back because I feel like it's important. Like it just has to happen. Have you been back? Have you?
I've been back, but I went back in 2014 when the Crimea situation started.
Oh.
So I went back during that time, but since then I haven't been back.
Cool.
But
you got to go. Congratulations. You just made it,
I know. Seriously, the country really went into kind of lockdown after that.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's an experience I'll never forget. And there's something, I don't know, there's something special about it. It's so different than the US. And you have more memories of it because you lived in Russia longer than I did, of course. I was just a baby when I came over. So, it was like a whole new, literally like world for me when I was there.
Totally.
But I learned, I learned a lot, and it was amazing. And hopefully one day I'll be able to get back.
Yes, I feel the same. I feel the same if I would ever go back, even though it was 14, 1, it's like part of our soul is there. And I feel like it's always going to be so special to us,
Right. Yeah. No, absolutely. So when you were in the US, right, did you ever feel the need to try to do any searching for Russian relatives after you were adopted? Did you ever try to find them again or reconnect or any of that?
So I really didn't really have any relatives. So by the time I was adopted, I had my aunt alive. That's really all I had left. And when I was getting adopted, and I was like, oh, hey, I'm getting adopted. And I ultimately went to go visit her because I really wanted a photograph of my mother. And, she ultimately refused to give it to me, saying she lost it. And I was like, okay, fine. And then she comes back to visit me at the orphanage and basically gives me her address so that I can send her money. And honestly, I was so mad. Like, I was a kid, so I'll take this with myself, forgive myself for that moment. But I was so mad that she never came visit me, right? Like, she never was a provider. But then suddenly she showed up to send me money. So I was so angry. I literally flushed down the toilet. I was so mad. And so
Wow.
for America, kind of without any information. So in all honesty, I have no idea if she's even still alive now or what. But yeah, no, I don't really. Sometimes I do wonder if I'll ever get to a point of like my father. But again, I don't know if he's worth it that much. Ultimately, at this point in my life journey,
Yeah.
Well,
so right now you're. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I said ultimately life is too short.
Yeah. Right. And it's, you have to battle that. You have to kind of battle like the what if scenarios of, hey, maybe I don't want to talk to them, but what if something happens and I will regret one day if I didn't ask this question or said this thing or so, and it's a lot to reach out to relatives, because you have mixed emotions and feelings and yeah.
Yeah, I have I'm part of some groups on Facebook, so I get a lot of time to see a lot of the adoptees being, oh my God, I just found my biological sibling or my father or my mother. So everyone is at different stages. Some of them, oh my God, this is more harder than I thought, and oh my God, and so
yeah,
kind of like be part of all of that and following up with their stories. I'm like, oh my God, he's right, because it's not an easy journey at all. It's very complicated, like super complicated.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's. I don't think there's any way to prepare yourself. You can try, but you jump into the deep end when you go looking.
Oh yeah, very deep end. Yep. That's like ultimately I'm all right with not knowing, because ultimately I got to think about riding the wave of life.
Yeah.
I fall off the wave. I gotta be honest. I feel like at this point in my life, I fell over a plane and tried to go against the current many times and try to whistle my way through any possible bypassing of life. Now, like, you know what, just stay on top of the wave and just ride it and forget whatever was then. Like, just forward. Bless you.
That's one way.
Thank you for bringing me to this life, and here I am,
That's right. Yeah, no, that's, it's a good way to be positive and look at it that way. So definitely. So the next big topic we should definitely discuss is your writing career, or what's going on with the. We know that you are a writer and you have been working very hard on your story, and tell us all about it.
Okay, I would love to. Yes. So when I was coming to America, like on the last flight from Poland to like across the ocean to America officially, I remember I was on the plane, like looking out the little window, and it was like very pretty outside, skies, puffy white clouds, so heavenly pretty, and of course, like the best day of my life, right? I'm getting adopted, I'm up there high. And I have this thought in my mind, I'm like, it would be so cool to like write my story one day and share the miracle of it with the world, because it will always be a very sacred, intimate connection moment I had with God, right? So a big part of the why I wanted to write the book, right, was because of that miracle being answered. Like, it was literally God's miracle. And I was just like, even now I can't express it because it is so incredible. And I said, one day people should know like what's possible, right? Like that. Like, look at me, an orphan who went through stuff in life, and God still loved me, and then, and helped me. Like, I didn't have to be anybody fancy or go to church, like there's just a lot of like amazing stuff. And so that's kind of like when the seed was planted.
Yeah.
I was all really exhilarated and excited to think about. But when it came to time to writing it, not so much.
Yeah. Yep.
With many failed and trying over attempts, and ultimately it was like 15 years worth of like burn these papers, not good. And then when I turned 30, it was like everything aligned, everything's got timing, the way I say it, I see it. And so it all aligned, and I was like, listen, if it's not now, it's never. It was just time for it to come out of me. And because it's always been there. And then finally, by the grace of God, I just from scratch spewed out in a short amount.
Wow.
And it was just like, I threw it up on there. I can say it was like, listen, just get it out, get an editor. Because I already knew somebody who was an editor. And
perfect.
Like she told you she'll help you one day if you get there. And so like, just give it and go do the research, just do all that. Because I self-published it, So once it was written, the journey kind of started. I published it, this and that. And now it's, out there alive. It happened in 2019. So it's been some time. But it has it has won some awards, which is pretty awesome. Obviously not something I ever expected. It wasn't even my idea. My husband was like, you should put it in the awards. And I was like, wow. It's like, just do it. What do you lose, And he has such a good, brilliant attitude like that. So I was like, what do I have to lose? I kind of went for it. And in 2020, I won a couple awards, Eric Huff awards. And I won this year for International Impact Book Award.
Wow. That's amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah, I guess goosebumps. Honestly, I was like so grateful. I had moments of crying and gratitude, all sorts of moments, because it's an impact, and like I really wanted like to be recognized because it made like impact, like whomever received it, right? And so if they received it and again, blessed me with this award, it really impacted them. And so thank you, God. I'm like, this is exactly what I wanted. It really made an impact.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's awesome. Congratulations again. That's a big deal. You should be very proud of yourself.
I'm trying.
It's all right. You can gloat. You earned it.
I don't know how. I'm just so grateful that like that's all I got. I'm just so grateful.
Good.
Because I knew I would be an author, and suddenly I'm like self-discovering. Writing my second one, and it's like, wow, this is pretty nice to kind of thrive in life for once, and like just self, and understand yourself and be like, oh, okay, like this is me. Who I am. I love doing this. There's okay, cool. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's really cool. So what have you noticed that, after you wrote your now first book and you're winning these awards, do you ever go back and think, does it bring back memories of Russia in a positive outlook or negative, or what has this experience of writing a book and publishing, what has this done for you?
Ooh. So So I am twice a college dropout first. I tried college. I just couldn't do it. And so this is huge for me in terms of like, I feel like this is like me graduating,
Yeah.
Feel sort of like that's how I feel. But also, yes, I've been having a lot of those moments of just like being like, good job, like look how far you've come, like talking to my 5-year-old, right? Like that got me to my 10-year-old and to the 10-year-old that got me to heal and all these other parts of myself that I had to be so resilient and strong to survive up to this point of my life and heal. And so I definitely feel so like I get goosebumps just talking about it just now.
Yeah.
Of gratitude, like I literally like no sadness at all. It's like it's nothing but like, wow, life is life. And it is one big giant mystery in many ways, right? Like nothing is ever certain or predictable. And so I'm just like, at least for myself, like I came to my own certain like conclusions, I guess, that resonate as each our own. But ultimately, yeah, I'm like, thank you, God. I can have closure now. I can sort of almost like move on in a way.
Yeah, absolutely. That's incredible. It really makes you think, especially now that you have it all in words and you can kind of sit back and just be like, whoa, I did that.
Oh, humbly so, yes. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Especially my second language, So
yeah.
My teacher who taught me English and how to read, years later, he said, and I still don't believe him, like a little to that. But he said to my husband, years we went to dinner with him and his wife. And he said, Luda was one of my best students I've ever had because of her that I retired. And I'm like, I still to this day will not accept it. I was like, what? But I give him all the credit, because I swear if it wasn't for him, I'm not certain that I would have written anything. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Well, luckily you don't have to do the what if card on that one because you already did it. So yep.
Thank you.
So what's the next big journey in your life right now? Is it continuing adoption? What are you up to these days presently?
Presently I have a very simple, lovely life. I work at home as an author. I kind of writing on my second memoir. Very excited about it. Honestly, that's going to be super healing, and it already kind of is in many ways.
That's great.
And I know it's going to be helpful for many of us out there. And, I do some painting as well, and poetry. I'm very metaphysical thinker and philosopher. So I do a lot of that kind of career stuff, I like to think and write. I have 2 furry pups, so, walking and such.
Yep.
And of course, and then I have big dreams, I have humongous dreams. Of course, I would love to, after the second memoir, I would love to write a third one because that one is ultimately super something, to say the least. It's been just quite like, I just had quite a life of super contrast. And I just feel like people should know what's possible once again,
Yeah. No, absolutely.
Oh, yeah. So writing.
Yeah. Writing about, hope is a very powerful message that you can promote. And
yes,
it's no one would ever, not want that. So, yeah.
Of us who are being adopted or are adoptees, like,
yeah,
like my dream, it would be like, just really quickly, like, I would love to open a facility one day, right? That is put together by adoptees only. Not even the parents are involved. Adoptees.
Love it. Love it. Yep.
You have a place where everything is thought about for a human being who's coming here. You know what I mean? Because ultimately, to be honest with you, when I was coming here, and I mean like at a certain age, whether it's 11, 8, 12, 14, right? At those ages, you need support. And it would be so amazing to build such a place one day with adoptees, with understanding how to help, right? Like us to really meet full potential if possible. right? Because it's so complicated. We all have PTSD, we have CPTSD, there's a lot of traumas involved. And I needed to be like out in a pasture, if that makes sense. Like I needed to be out in a pasture, slowly warming my way back into life. And so
right.
That's where, when it comes to my writing, when it comes to my books, like spreading the message, ultimately, that's what I'm leading to with my dream. Like I'm like, here's what I'm gotta present to you about my life. Here is, like I had to survive and what I didn't feel I received. But if I did, perhaps it would have made my journey a little bit more fulfilling at the time. So anyway, that would be so amazing because I feel like that would make huge difference to those.
Yeah, that's an incredible idea right there. I would support that wholeheartedly. That sounds just what we would need, and to have a center where you can, if you're adopted, kind of be your one-stop shop, where you get all the answers that you need or the resources and the guides, and it's run by people who are adopted who understand you.
And I'm mad.
That's beautiful. So I always like to end every interview with one final question, and that is from you to personally give all of us some advice. And what would that advice be?
Okay. I would say have faith. Have faith, grow your relationship and intimacy with God, and go within, because there's so much all around you at every single moment, right around you, flying all the time. And you're deserving, and there is nothing wrong with you. And there's no reason why you shouldn't be dreaming and intending for whatever you want, because life is short. And so go on and intend and dream, because I wouldn't have come this far if I haven't. And God is real, guys. Is there for you in your own way, however it is that you need to know God. But keep that thread growing, and you'll be amazed what comes, because ultimately it's God is from within out, and you guys know yourselves the most and the best. And so in God's name, let you dream and intend and find your happiness.
Beautiful. Thank you, Luda, for your time and your compassion and your story and your amazing journey and the success of your book, and to the future success of your upcoming memoirs as well. We definitely look forward to reading those, and we would love to have you back on anytime to share when those come out and talk more about it. Again, we really appreciate you taking the time out of your day, and it's been a pleasure getting to know you and hear your story.
Thank you so much, David. It's been really a pleasure, and thank you so much for having me. Huge thank you to your team too, to all 5 of you out there. I'm not going to say names. I looked at you all and researched you all, and you're all beautiful beings. Thank you for putting this podcast together for all of us. I've been listening to all of your podcasts, all the stories that's been shared, and I've been getting a lot of good info. So thank you so much for tonight and for having me. And yes, perhaps in the future we'll be speaking again.
I'm sure we will. Definitely. Thank you again. And it's been a real pleasure. That was Luda from Crimea, 14-year-old adoptee from Crimea. You can listen to her full story on www.voiceofadoptees.com, also available on all of our streaming platforms. If you are adopted or know someone you want to come on and tell us your story, sign up. We'd love to have you on. Thank you again for stopping by, and we will catch you next episode on Voice of Adoptees. Who am I?
Thanks for listening to Voice of Adoptees. Please take a moment to like, subscribe, and leave a review. See you next time.